Hi, everybody. I'm Leon Thomas. Welcome to another episode of Real Thoughts and Conversations, the show where we talk about issues, talk about things that are on regular folks' minds, not politicians, not those in government. We're talking real people talking about real issues. I'm Leon Thomas. Welcome to Real Thoughts and Conversations. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Real Thoughts and Conversations. I'm Leon Thomas. Thanks for watching. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of topics related to race relations and business and a lot of things associated with it. And my guest today, our guest, is Dr. Miranda Kitterlin-Lynch, a professor of hospitality at Florida International University. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing just groovy. I enjoy working with you. You and I have written some articles together and have done some worked on some other projects. It's a pleasure to know you and a pleasure to work with you.
Likewise, likewise.
And thank you for being with us today. We often communicate text message through LinkedIn about things that are going on in race relations. And that's actually how you and I met. I think I attended a conference that you were hosting virtually through your university. Am I remembering that correctly? Is
Yep,
that what happened?
absolutely. And after that conference, you were so gracious to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You provided me some amazing feedback, and I think that it's been a great relationship since.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I indeed feel the same way. So thank you again for being my friend and for allowing me to communicate with you. It's a cool thing, and I hope that some of the communications that we've done, the articles, the posts, even this show, that someone, just one person, watches, listens, reads, and says, they have a point. Maybe I can do better. So that's what we're hoping will happen. So, Miranda, let's start with this. We both have backgrounds in the hotel business. And, 2 years ago, when all the shootings and murders took place, particularly that of George Floyd, all the hotel companies, it seemed like, came out with statements that basically said, we're going to do better when it comes to diversity, and particularly with our black employees and black owners and so forth. And I thought, yes, that's pretty good. Great talk. Seems like that's all it was talk, huh?
Well, I believe that the numbers somewhat speak for themselves. If you look at the most recent Castell report on Black representation, our Black population has lost share of the labor force. So it's disappointing and frustrating. Yeah, I don't want to say that it was all just talk, but that certainly is the perception for many.
Yeah, yeah. I looked at the Castell report as well, and when you look at it and you see that six and a half or 6.3% of board members in hotel companies were black in 2017, and it's that same number now after all the talk. You wonder, wow, what is happening? And then the same thing when it comes to black hotel managers and even in some cases department heads. I just don't see any improvement in those numbers either.
It's not even what's happening, it's what's not happening. What's not happening that needs to be happening, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mentorship programs, management training programs. That's what I grew up in the business of management training program. I've even talked to some owners of management companies. These are white owners of management companies that say they are still doing it. And then there's so many others, brands that they're just not doing anything. So they talked it all, but it's not happening. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer to that to the problem is.
Right. And I don't have a concrete answer either. And I have to give some credit because I believe that there are companies that are genuinely trying to make an improvement and trying to make a change. But whatever it is that they're doing simply is either not working, or it's not working effectively, or it's not working very quickly. Um, so,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and we've
No,
had a year. When companies need to make decisions in a crisis, decisions can be made very quickly, effective decisions. We've just seen that through this pandemic. I consider this to be a crisis, and I believe that a year is more than enough time to correct operating decisions. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think if they really wanted to do it, I think that something could happen. Let's shift gears a bit. You emailed me a couple weeks ago, and which actually brought this conversation to light. A term that you used, the innocent white male syndrome, or innocent white male. What tell us about that?
yeah, so it's no secret that white men in the United States, some white men in the United States, feel that they're being attacked by all of the increased diversity efforts and all the increased conversation about lack of representation of people of color, of women, etc. Lack of representation of anyone who is not a cis white male. I just read a headline today talking about why white men in the United States feel attacked by DEI and why we should care. Um, I've had personal conversations with friends and family who are white men who say to me, how can you say things like that? Because I've never done anything, and I support people of color, and I support women. And to that I say, well, then this is not about you. If you're not doing the bad things, then this conversation isn't about you, and you don't need to feel attacked. You can simply walk away knowing that this simply does not apply.
I've had similar conversations with white friends, some of those that I used to work with, some that I used to work for, and they say, Leon, why do you make so many posts and always talk about race relations? I don't even read it anymore because it doesn't apply to me. And so what I say to them is, why don't you share it with a friend that you know doesn't have the same thoughts that you do? Share it with a buddy, share it with a colleague at another company, share it with a neighbor, maybe someone at your church, someone on your child's soccer team needs to hear it, because they're not listening to me. Maybe they'll listen to you because you're more like them. And the answer I get is, well, no, I can't do that. Like, what do you mean you can't?
Why?
You just won't, because they're afraid that when they go to their white friend and say, you need to change, you need to think differently, you need to give someone else a chance, that they're going to look at them and say, oh, well, you're not one of us, so to speak. That's what one of my white friends just told me on Saturday. That's what he feels about it. And I'm like, if it's like that, it'll never change.
It
We've
sounds like
got to make
that's
some
one of the
changes.
gatekeeping factors that is not letting the needle move, right?
Hmm.
Because if people are too afraid to say anything to others, then how are we there? Sorry. It just makes me so frustrated.
Yeah. And I read an article and several Facebook posts and LinkedIn posts that talked about this also. They said that many of these white men say, well, in my company we have women, in my company we have blacks, in my company we have black females. And then it's, what about away from work? What about in your neighborhood, in the social groups and the clubs that you belong to, the country clubs, the golf clubs? What are they doing? And what are you doing to help
Right.
change things?
Well, even before you go outside of the company, okay, you've got women, you've got people of color in your company. Where are they in your company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Good point.
And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I'm not demonizing white men in the United States. I don't think that all white men are bad, just like I don't think all of anyone is good or bad, right? But the fact remains that white men in the United States hold the majority of leadership positions and decision-making power. And so we need them to buy into this and to come over onto this side and share it and speak up. We need them to be part of this movement. So
Yeah.
we're not trying to make them feel alienated or demonized. We want to include them. We want them on our team.
Yeah. Yeah. We want it to happen. So, we're beating the drum, yes, because many white men just aren't getting it. right? So that's why the drum keeps getting beat. That's why we're trying to change things. That's why we have meetings like this. That's why we have shows like this. If you'd like to make a comment, you can do so by clicking on comments. This is a recorded show, but we'll see your comments. If you'd like to send me an email to talk about it, my email address is leonthetrainer@gmail.com. And so you can contact me, and I'll make sure that if you have something you'd like to say to Dr. Kitterlin-Lynch, I'll forward it on to her. And if you want to come on a show and talk about it, either because you are in support of what we're talking about or because you totally disagree, let me know. We'd love to have you here on the show so we can talk about that. So, Miranda, remember 2 years ago, all the DEI talk that was going on, and at many conferences, there was always a section, a topic, a part, a panel discussion, a something on diversity, inclusion, and equity. Remember all that, what's going on, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I've noticed a trend because our organization facilitates, helps with the logistics of many virtual events. And I'm on several committees that hold meetings and conferences. So in 2022, it was DEI. We've got to have it on the agenda. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And 2021, it went down to, do you know any black folks that like to come talk for free? These are at paid events. It's like to come talk for free. And then it went to this year, it's not important. We've heard enough of it. What are your thoughts on that? I can't believe it's happening. I mean, why isn't it, if it was important 2 years ago, why isn't it important now? I don't get it.
So I'm not going to say that it's not important. And if I can share, Professor Brian Barker, who works with me at FIU, has recently just spearheaded this Alliance for Hospitality, Equity, and Diversity, AHED, AHED. And it includes several members of academia and industry who are working towards these initiatives. So I have to say it's not dead. People are still working very, very hard on this. I do believe, however, that it's very easy for companies to get recognition when they're outspoken about social issues. Unfortunately, other social issues are arising in the United States that have people's attention, people with buying power's attention, that company marketing departments may jump onto next. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that people are in the business to make money. And marketing teams are tasked with the goal to get the most consumers' positive attention. And if society as a whole is not being loud about diversity, equity, and inclusion as much as they were in 2020, it's simply the way things are going to work. So it's up to people like us, like Professor Brian Barker, like everybody that's part of the AHEAD Alliance, to keep making noise. Don't stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In planning for, I completely agree with you. Like we need to continue making the noise. Several of the committees that I talked about that I'm on committees to help conferences, to help organize conferences. I raised the stink last week and the week before, and I hope anybody that's watching, that if you're part of those committees, you'll remember what I'm talking about. What I said was, if we're not going to have a topic, a panel discussion or a breakout session on diversity, inclusion, and equity, why don't we do this? Why don't we have each speaker, let's require them to say something about what their company or their department is doing around DEI. So if that's accounting, sales, whatever it is, let's talk about it. Let's have them talk about it. Let's require it. And that was met with, no, we can't tell people what to talk about. So then I said, well, why don't we make sure then that anyone that speaks has a diverse corporate lineup? Let's check out the leaders in the company. And if someone has an all-white organization, we don't allow them to speak, because clearly there may be something that they're not doing. And that, I received a lot of pushback on that also. And so even in trying to say, let's not have a topic on it, let's not have a breakout session, let's not have a panel discussion, but let's include it in everything that we're doing, there was some major pushback there. But I'm not giving up.
I'm glad you're not giving up. I'm surprised that there's pushback. And again, you're going to industry conferences and industry events. I'm going to these academic conferences and academic events. And this gives me some optimism because I was just at ICRE in Washington, D.C. last week, and I saw several presentations on the topic of DEI, specific to hospitality, but still, these are not only just faculty presentations, but student presentations. And I think that is really important that we are seeing students who are interested enough in this area to put the work in, to submit their presentations, and to, make the trip to present to an international audience. So I'm very optimistic about the generation that's coming up into the workforce ranks because they haven't forgotten about it. They're not pushing back. They're still talking about it.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. What's been the feedback from some of the graduates of your program in hospitality, and how their what are their thoughts on DEI and race relations and work when it goes to getting that first job post graduation or that career advance move? What are their thoughts?
Well, I can share with you that the students that have spoken to me about this, particularly students of color, they have shared that they believe that it really was just talk. They shared that in their own workplaces, they are not seeing things being done. And if things are being done, they're not being done effectively. So that's not to speak for the entire population of graduates from our program, but the ones that I've spoken to, and there have been many.
Yeah. And I mentor some students, primarily those that majored in sport management. I talk to a lot of African American and other minority students, and they just feel that they're not getting a fair shake in that first job or even in advancement. And many of them are looking outside of the sports world, outside of hotels, the hotel business, looking at other career opportunities where they can get what they say is fair treatment and opportunity. So I hope that we get this thing moving
I agree.
quickly. Hope
And
we
it's
get it
very,
moving.
it saddens me. And I know that this is not a new idea. I know that this has probably been happening forever. But many of my students of color will tell me that they feel like they have to work twice as hard. They have to dress twice as formally. That there's just never going to be a casual day for them in the workplace, as opposed to their white counterparts.
Yep.
And you can tell me if that's been your experience.
Yeah. When I worked corporate, I had a very very similar experience. A dress down day for others was not a dress down day for me. We had some conversation last year or maybe even 2 years ago about ascots. I often wear an ascot, and that sometimes is not perceived as business dress. So that was interesting. Even my hairstyle or lack of hair. I was even questioned about that once. And shaving, because a lot of black men get shave bumps, and so you have to grow a beard. Some of my female friends and their hairstyles. A couple of my friends that have African given names, that their bosses, supervisors wanted to shorten the name, and they said, no, no, my name is, and you will learn the full name, and others took offense to that. So it's still live. It's live and kicking. And but now, I read a book several years ago called "If I Was the Boss," and I can't remember the author of it, but the name of it was "If I Were the Boss." And now that I am the boss, the head of my organization, I try to make sure that those types of things that I experience, I don't want others to experience them here. So, very very cautious about things that we do, how we do things. And we want to have a culture where everyone feels welcome and included. And I'd like to think that everyone does. And if you're a member of the team and I'm not doing that, please call me. Some of you know where I live. You have my cell phone number. You know my wife. So let us know if I'm not if I'm not doing it right.
It sounds so simple, but I think it's so important that you say things like that on a public platform like this, because I like to think that I am a good ally. I like to think that I am knowledgeable about race relations. I've had people of color in my life for my entire life. And until I started having these types of conversations, it never occurred to me that anyone would be discriminated against based on their hairstyle, right? Or it just absolutely never occurred to me. So without having conversations like this and being privy to what's happening with, the population of color, I certainly wouldn't know, but then I wouldn't know and thus would not be able to do anything to advocate for change.
Yeah. And you said you'd like to think that you are an ally. I'll tell you that you are.
Thank
You
you.
you you are through our friendship and through mutual friends. I've heard some things about you and read comments, of course, the comments and replies on posts. And so yes, you are an ally, and many appreciate it. Let's talk about the NFL and pro sports. And I'm not talking about who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year. Okay, no, we're not talking that. Many teams, Major League Baseball, National Football League, National Hockey League, National Basketball Association, the teams have naming rights agreements. And so the team receives money from a corporation to name the stadium. So in Massachusetts, where the Patriots play, it's called Gillette Stadium. In Pittsburgh, their football stadium was formerly known as Heinz Field. That naming relationship ended, and Pittsburgh, the Steelers selected a company called Acrisure, and it's now called Acrisure Stadium. And I looked up Acrisure because I didn't know what they were, what they did, and they're in the insurance business. Acrisure list shows profiles of 48 leaders and senior executives on their website. 48. None of them are black. 48 executives, none of them are black. And when I looked at it, I'm like, what? 48? And the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers is the head of the NFL's diversity committee. And I'm just thinking, a league like the NFL, as powerful as they are, and all the diversity talk that they've put out there the last couple of years, need to do more than just hire a black coach or a black director of player personnel. They need to make sure that vendors and partners, and not just the Steelers, other teams, need to make sure that vendors and partners have diverse organizations. And clearly, in this case, they don't. So,
Right.
wow, what do you think about that when I tell you a company has 48 senior executives and none of them are black, but they're buying, something from partnership with a league and the team?
Well, it's disappointing. Is it surprising? No, it's disappointing, certainly. And I guarantee you, someone is going to hear that and say, "Well, were there no qualified applicants of color, and that's why there's just a full team of white people." And to that, I would say, well, why is that? Why aren't there any? If that's what you think, then why aren't there any qualified applicants of color? Where in the pipeline do we need to work on that? So,
Yeah. Yeah. I did a LinkedIn post about this, and someone messaged me and said, maybe no one black applied for the positions. And I'm like, stop. Yes, ain't buying it. No. Don't tell me nobody black applied. And Miranda, as you know, many positions like that, they're not up for application anyway.
Right.
Folks are recruited into those positions.
Yes.
I had a white person contact me to say, do you know anyone that would be interested? Well, is your network that shallow that you don't know any black people? Is it really that bad? That you have to ask me, do I know a black person that's interested? Come on. We just need to start, let's be real. If the senior executive, the chairman or president doesn't have any black friends, well, there's the first problem right there. And if you don't have any black friends, contact me. I'll be your friend. Okay. Anybody that's out there and says I don't have any black friends, contact me. Right. Okay. And listen. If you're black and you don't have any white friends, contact me. I have some of those too. Okay. Let's just stop this stuff. It's just they just didn't want to.
Right. Well,
right?
I do want to push back a little bit by saying that first, I'm laughing not because it's funny, but it's just it's laughable that would happen, right? I think sometimes people get caught up in their network and they're not intentional about their network in regards to diversity. I think that it's very easy for you to rely on the people that you know in your network without realizing and taking a look at what does your network look like? If it's just a sea of faces that are all the same shade, then you have to be intentional. If you want to do, if you want to help push the needle, you have to be intentional about your network, right? And that can be completely authentic. That doesn't have to be, performative. That can be absolutely authentic to reach out to people of color that play in the same space that you do and say, hey, I'd like to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know how many companies have a referral bonus. If you recommend someone for a position, they're going to pay you an X number of dollars as a referral bonus. And I often look at the organizations that do that and who is referred. And I'll think about that in two ways. With a company that I worked for, I recommended many black people for positions, and they didn't get hired. But I thought they were really, really qualified, but they didn't get hired. Now I had some black friends that did get hired, but then I think of the organizations that have a lot of white leaders and a lot of white employees, and they say, here's a referral bonus. Well, there's more and more white folks that are being recommended for positions. And then I think, what happens when a white female recommends a black female for a position? Does the hiring manager or the department head look at that white female and go, you're not really what we thought you were? I mean, I don't know, but I've heard talk of these things happening.
I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. Let's stick with reality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in order for anyone to ever speak up, again, speaking up is part of making change, right? In order for anyone to speak up, they have to feel that it is safe for them to speak up. And there need to be ramifications for people who make them feel unsafe. Mm-hmm. There needs to be some sort of process or procedure by which anyone who is intimidating, bullying, denying that, so.
Yeah. All right. Miranda, it's great speaking with you as always. Thanks for spending time with us. And this is the first of a 2-part series. So we'll be back later this week to have the second part of the conversation. And this one is recorded. You're going to be watching this, the audience, you're going to watch this on Tuesday and Wednesday. And as you're watching on Tuesday and Wednesday, if you'd like to be on the next show to be a part of the conversation with me and Miranda, send me an email. My email address is leonthetrainer@gmail.com. And we'll see about getting you on the show to bring you in, and let's hear your thoughts on this. Particularly if you don't agree with what we're talking about. We want you on the show. Plead your case. We're going to give you a chance to talk. This is not like some radio show where if we don't agree with you, we're going to cut you off. I'm going to let you talk. But you got to show up. You got to tell us you want to be a part of it. Okay? And please don't tell me, oh, I'm at work. Shut up. You can get a half hour off to talk. You figure out a way to do anything else that you want to do. So let's make it happen. Dr. Miranda Kitterlin-Lynch, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Every time I talk to you, I walk away inspired and having learned something new. So thank you for these opportunities.
Great. Thank you. And thank you to our producer, Dion Hunter, for working everything in the background. Thank you, Dion. Excellent job. I'm Leon Thomas. You just watched an episode of Real Thoughts and Conversations. We'll see you next time. Take care.